Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, and welcome back, or welcome if you're here for the first time. I'm Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 175 of the Cognitive Podcast. Yay! I am recording this at 1:48 p.m. on Sunday, March 24th, 2024. How's everybody doing? I hope you're all doing okay. I'm delighted to be here with you once again. Your comments are certainly welcome. You can comment on the blog at Cognitive, don't forget the K in knit, cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Or you can go to our group on Ravelry, which is creatively named Cognitive with the same funky spelling. Let's see what's going on right now. Well, in the warm thanks department, I'd like to thank both Sustainable Living and Yo Netty Yo just for their general support on my strategies on overthinking. This was one of those series I didn't expect to do. It just came out of the blue. And then it was one of those things where you look at it and you go, why didn't I do that before? So thank you, Sustainable Living and Yo Netty Yo. I really appreciate your comments and your following on that. Thanks also to Gigi Knitmore, who found out that I was fasting and immediately wished me a happy Ramadan. And forgive me, this isn't my native tongue, so I'm probably going to slaughter it, but it's still worth saying to all those of you who are observing, Ramadan Mubarak. I have to tell you, I was very complimented by her offering that to me. And I also have to admit that I am fasting quite hard here, but I am not the faster that the people observing Ramadan are. Let me tell you, Ramadan, even in my book, that is one hairy fast. I mean, it's hard work. You're giving up water, I believe. And of course, you get to do everything again at sunset. And I just love that for so many reasons. I really like this idea of going without. I like the idea of fasting. I don't really care how you do it. And let me tell you, I'm nowhere close, as I've said, because I'm drinking electrolytes as well as water. I'm drinking herbal teas with nothing added to them. Right now I'm drinking a cup of coffee because I'm on my off day. It's a keto coffee, but coffee indeed it is. And I do take a break on weekends to kind of disrupt my eating schedule so my body just doesn't shift into low gear from starvation. Always interesting to fast. You learn a lot when you do it. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your base food habits and expectations. Fasting is hard when you're a carb eater. When you are not an eater of many carbs, fasting is nothing. The only thing you have to watch out for, and this really isn't about the carbs, is the electrolytes, because one of the things that goes with a keto diet is getting away from processed foods. Well, that's where most people in America get their electrolytes. We have such a crummy diet. We eat so much packaged and prepared and super processed food that we're getting electrolytes primarily from those things. So we're not eating them in other places. Like I consciously add a good quality salt to my food very often now because I don't get electrolytes in other places. I take Epsom salt baths to get magnesium because I don't get a lot of electrolytes in other places. So you're always going to learn things. There's also a spiritual aspect, and I'm pretty sure this is what Islam is going for, and Lent in the Catholic faith is going for. And that is, you begin to understand what it's like to want food and not be able to get it. And that's a pretty significant thing. That's meant to increase your empathy with the poor. Every now and then, you should have this experience. And I say this as a mental health professional. Now, yes, if you can't, you can't. You should talk to your doctor before you do it. Again, if your health, your medications, yes, and by the way, in a fast, you take your meds. But again, you don't do this unless you talk to a doctor about it. You have to be in good health. If your health precludes it, your health precludes it. But I wanted to thank Gigi for reminding me that while I'm working hard to reduce my symptoms of diabetes and get my blood sugar low again, and also just get more comfortable in my clothes, I really want to thank her for that reminder that this is also a spiritual opportunity. And I don't think you have to be religious to be spiritual. In fact, I think the two may often conflict, but I'm a sarcastic creature at heart. Meanwhile, let's see what else. Oh, yes. There's 2 places in the show notes where you will find information on the Cognitive Fiber Retreat. So here's the first one. All the information for Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10, which is our 2024 retreat. The information is right here. There's a link. It'll take you to the information thread on Ravelry. We are now within the 6-month limit. It is coming. So now I'm going to start nagging you more about it if you want to come. But I really want you to know about it. Also, if you have any suggestions for things you'd like to see in CFR 10, you really should put that over on the information thread in Ravelry or somewhere in the show notes for this episode. I really am interested in what you want. I am hoping that we will get Jasmine Knitmore back. She did this wonderful class on steeking last year, and she really had to work this. I mean, I'm amazed she did this. I have to tell you, I thought this was incredibly generous. She brought down a sewing machine, she brought down samples, and she really was trying to show people stuff. And at the end of it, she was very excited and telling me all about how she figured better ways to do this class. Hint, hint, Jasmine. I'd like to see that class come back. More than that, I'd like to sit in on it, but I don't know if the gods will be that good, because usually when I'm running this thing on the ground on the day of, there's a lot going on that I have to attend to, so I rarely get to sit through a whole class uninterrupted. But do you have any other classes in mind? Do you have any other in the group who are attending? Anybody else who has anything they want to teach? Do let me know. Now, last year, to be fair to you all, I was a bit rigid. I had people I didn't know popping up saying I could teach all these classes. Well, I have to know you, because I've had people who volunteered for all sorts of things and never showed up. I had one Indy Dyer who tried to actively sabotage. I had a vendor who tried to actively sabotage. If you do something like this, you're going to meet all types. It's pretty exciting. And so what I would say is, now some of the people last year said they could teach. I'm open. If I've met you, and I know your name, and I will, if you were there last year, then you want to teach it, please, let me know what you're thinking of. We love that stuff. In the meantime, what's on my hooks and needles? Well, nothing is finished. Really, not much was done this week. Other things were going on, as I will tell you, in the blather and various other departments. So I really did not get to sit down and knit or crochet very much. So that's a bit shocking, isn't it? I will tell you, the 5th sock yarn cowl from CFR 23, I think it's at about 6 inches now out of its 8. And the number of little tiny throwaway balls of fingering weight yarn on my desk are disappearing, and I'm loving that. This is the Abbas, I think probably, sock yarn cowl pattern. It is crocheted. This is linen stitch and crochet, which is 1 single crochet followed by a chain 1. And then you're going to single crochet into the chain 1s of the previous row and chain over above the single crochets in the previous row. This is so easy. It's very satisfying. It eats up that scrap yarn. I'm thinking about just sitting down and bashing out a few pairs of fingerless mitts with some of my sock yarn that's been left over from various projects, because I have so much of it. I had a lot of it organized to make it into a sweater. And I'll be honest, I looked at it and said, I don't want a sock yarn sweater. I just don't. The reasons are I've got a huge amount of DK and worsted size 3, size 4 yarn around the house. I have enough sweaters to make probably literally for the rest of my life at this point. So I really don't want to do that. Last year I was into the Fair Isle collar sweaters. I have at least one more on that list. I want to do the Astraeus. But in all honesty, I don't want to do a sock yarn sweater. Why? One moth bite and you're ruined. And it's a huge amount of yarn to lose. And, if you try to recover the yarn by ripping it out, the fear is it's got moth eggs on it. There's all sorts of problems there. But I really just don't want it. I like the drape. I'm wearing the socks that I made myself on my feet. But to be honest, I don't find them warm enough. I don't want that. I want heavier sweaters. So that isn't going to happen. So I will be making all sorts of little projects out of my leftover sock yarn. And I must say I'm very happy. The only pit I won't fall into is the sock yarn blankets where you make all the squares and you just add it. No, because then you have to go begging sock yarn from other people. And in the words of my hero, William Shakespeare, that way madness lies. Meanwhile, Lydia's pink socks. I am working my way down the leg. You may remember this is from the Lydia's Pink colorway from Cutiful Yarns, based in Australia. I am going to tell you something. This is one good yarn company. I don't care that I really like its boss, our own Cutiful Christina or Chris Ah, who I do really like her, to be honest. I don't care that it's named after her insanely adorable daughter. I don't care about any about that. What I care about is this is damn good yarn. I already made socks, you may remember, from a bunch of the mini skeins I managed to beg, borrow, and steal during CFR 2023. I love those socks. I love this yarn. I love the hand of it. You just can't make this go wrong. The base yarn is wonderful. I assume it's Australian in origin. Whatever you're using, Chris, keep using it. And the colors are divine. So I'm just saying. And I know that was an extended advert. And if you are in Australia, you should be buying from this woman. If you're in America, really, go look her up. I have the link to her shop in the resources section on the cognitive group on Ravelry. Meanwhile, did I mention I'm in love with these socks? Okay. They're mind-blowing pink and purple. I think these things can be seen from the satellite. I'm sure right now there's some Russian on the moon aiming a telescope at him. And if he is, he's getting a real treat. They're just beautiful. Vestuary 24. This is very pathetic. Should have been done in February. Everybody have a good laugh. But in February, I just got caught up with the wonderful hexagon sweater that I'm deeply in love with. The Love Hex. It's called the Love Hex sweater in my notes. However, I am back to Vestuary 24. Again, this is Death by Stockinette. So I'm working my way up the back. I'm probably about halfway up the back. I have to do about 9.5 inches before I start doing the decreases into the collar area. It's a very, very easy pattern. This is, of course, the vest pattern from Ann Budd's book, the Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns. I just think, if there were 5 books for knitting I would have on my shelf, this would be probably my very first choice. It's such an amazing, amazing book. It just has everything in it. So I am definitely one of Bud's buds, as she calls it, because I just think the book is such a gift. You buy this, you can make anything you want to make pretty much. Now, she doesn't have every variation on every pattern available, but basic sweater, basic vest, socks, mittens, it's just a remarkable book. Okay, enough of that. The Deep Stash Dive to Socks in the Lime and Violet colorway from, before some of you were born. I'm joking. I think that's not true, but anyway, I am past the heel on the second sock, and I'm just doing a repeat a day because this is in the 4-row repeat pattern, Blueberry Waffle sock. If you don't know that pattern, real simple. If you know a basic vanilla sock, do your ribbing for 1 or 2 inches, and then you do a repeat of 2 rows of stockinette, followed by 2 rows of knit 2, purl 2. And you do that till you just reach the place where you handle the heel the way you want to. And then going down the foot, I leave the bottom of the foot in stockinette and the top is in that pattern. And that's it. This could not be easier, and I highly recommend it. So we're working on that. In the unexpected pleasures department, I have had the front of a sweater, a crocheted sweater, just a little short sleeve thing for summer, that I started with leftover yarn. It was Vanna's Choice from Lion Brand. This is just an acrylic. This was really a fast summer shell that I made, except I didn't because I ran out of yarn. And I went back to the yarn store and found out Vanna's Choice was canceled by Lion Brand. Now you can tell this was a few years ago because it's actually back, but it has a very limited color range. I made it in this insanely beautiful pale periwinkle blue and white and a sort of ashes of roses color. So I took this front to any yarn store I could get to, could not find an acrylic worsted weight number 4 that would match it. So I've looked at it mournfully, and finally I saw a few things I want to try, such as a little sunflower block and also a cardigan made out of granny square blocks, any pattern you want, and also an adorable bag made out of, I think it's 15 squares, and it's just a cat, the silhouette of a cat, of course, on a plain background. Anyway, I looked at this and said, okay, I don't know why this is sitting here. If I leave it in its current configuration, I can't finish it. So today I started reclaiming it. You can see a picture of the rose and the white that I reclaimed. And I'm still have to sit down and finish pulling out the blue, which is no problem at all. But I'm looking at a few different crochet patterns I want to give a shot at. Where did this come from? On Instagram, there is this hilarious account where all she does is has herself, and in one version of herself she's wearing a knitted Fair Isle sweater, and the other she's wearing this insanely beautiful granny square cardigan. And they're talking to each other. The woman in the Fair Isle is called knitting, and the woman in the crocheted granny square cardigan is called crochet. And it's knitting and crocheting, talking to each other about her. That is the woman they both influence who has both skills. The little reels are very, very cute and very, very funny and very, very true. But everybody, every time she shows crochet wearing that cardigan, everybody goes, ooh, ah, where did you get that pattern? And I looked at it, the last one, and went, okay, the Fair Isle sweater is kind of forgettable to me. It's not my colors. It's beautifully done, but it isn't me. But ooh, ah, on that cardi. So I did find a pattern that's very attractive, and it is from Jess Koppel, I think her name is. She's one of the brains behind the Make and Do crew. And if you don't know Make and Do crew, they work with Yarnspiration, who in turn, I believe, works for Red Heart. But at any rate, Make and Do crew do basic crochet patterns that just about anybody can do. There's no huge advanced bizarre skills there. And I really recommend if you're into crocheting, you go look at it. But Make and Do crew, if you want a pattern, you start there in crochet. If you want a pattern. Now, this is not to say there are better, more complicated designers. I'm thinking of our own Lexicon, who's amazing and especially excels in Tunisian crochet. Okay, I'm not there yet. I have a set of Tunisian needles now my sister gave me for Christmas, but I just haven't been able to get myself there because that flame has not lit in me. Sorry, Lex, but hopefully it will. Okay, but meanwhile, I'm talking about really basic fundamental stuff. And one of the things I've learned is how much I'm enjoying my cardigans. I have 2 of them that I crocheted. One is from the woman who runs Crocheting Done Right, which makes me a little nervous because of that name. Think about it. But it was fabulous. And I love that cardigan. It came out way off, and so it was much bigger than it needed to be. And I adore it. It's my big drapey, comfy, wrap yourself up in a floppy cardigan. The other one is from Make and Do crew. It's the Campfire cardigan, which I adapted, as you may remember, just recently, the Love Hex cardigan in the red, pink, and white. I have that cardigan sitting next to me as I sit here, and the other one, the Wrapped in Tiny Chains cardigan, the floppy one, is in my study I keep them with me all day. I love throwing them off and on as the room cools and heats, etc. This is the place to go. So now I'm just looking at doing a granny square cardigan, and I'm looking at making Dew Cruise cardigan. You just go, you'll find it. I don't remember the exact name. And it's a very long coat. And I realize if I take off the bottom 3 row of blocks from the look of it, that would just be sensational. And let me explain to you, this is not hard. You remember, I'm the woman who put together 361 squares crocheted to make Blanket's Own Blanket, a few months back, around roughly a year ago now. Okay, so let me tell you, after doing that, I think this is probably going to be, at most 30 squares. So this isn't scaring me. So I'm looking at that, but I'm also looking at just doing a plain cream-colored cardigan with the front panels on each side, a panel of granny squares in that sunflower pattern for a granny square, but I want to do those squares in, I think, these colors that I'm reclaiming, that slatey blue and the pink. And then also any other short skeins, because these are all from big skeins, that I find. To that end, I did go to Joann's yesterday, and I bought some yarn. And I'll get to that in the stash toss. Dizzy blondes, nothing happening there. And the strategy, let's go back to overthinking one more time, and that is one thing at a time. And our own beautiful Christina, alias Chris, brought this up last time in one of our postings, and I mentioned it, and I was really giving it a lot of thought, and I don't know if I've included it so far. I need to do a little research, I guess, on my own strategies, but I've talked about one thing at a time in the context of the acronyms for distress tolerance for DBT. It's in the IMPROVE acronym that you use to calm yourself when you're upset. So what's it got to do with strategy? Okay, well, it's really not so much one thing at a time, but it's where one thing at a time leads you that I want to talk about here. And that is prioritize, establish checklists and scheduling, and return to that. Make a habit of going back to your schedule or your checklist or both several times throughout the day, because marking it will make you feel rewarded. Okay, so let's take that apart a little bit. So I'm having all these painful thoughts. Okay, and the first question, using one thing at a time, you ask yourself is, am I supposed to be doing this right now? So let's go to the bane of all humanity, those hours when you're lying in bed and it's dark. And it's really hard to distract yourself with another activity, but worse than that, if you do, you're going to wake yourself up. This is where every patient I've ever had suffers. I suffer, you suffer, we all suffer. Heaven knows Santa Claus probably suffers from this. It's so human. That all day long we can distract ourselves in good ways from our painful thinking, from our overthinking. However, the place you all get trapped, including me, is when you're in bed, particularly when you're trying to fall asleep. So you're lying there and you're thinking about, oh my God, what am I going to do about this thing at work? All right, good enough. One thing at a time. What are you supposed to be doing right now? I'm supposed to be going to sleep. If I'm thinking about the thing at work, will I fall asleep? No. In fact, it's probably physiologically impossible. Why is that, Gemma? To fall asleep, you have to lower your blood pressure. Not a huge amount, but your blood pressure has to go below a certain threshold. You need to really think about that, because that counts. That's a big one. How do you lower your blood pressure, Gemma? Well, there are numerous ways, including meditating, breathing exercises that I've talked about before and no doubt we'll talk about again. Here's what you don't do. Thinking about problems, thinking about bad memories. Why? Those things are upsetting you. Hey, Gemma, what does that mean on a biological level? It means you're raising your blood pressure. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't. Cheap hacks to lower your blood pressure. My favorite is take a very hot shower or bath, jump out of the tub, dry yourself off, put yourself in a robe and jump in your bed. The change in body temperature you induce by doing that, by the way, will drop your blood pressure. So there you go. You thought I was going to teach you some kind of self-control thing, and I'm just teaching you to run through a shower. It won't bother your bed partner either if you're a little cleaner, Just saying. Okay. That is one hack, so you know. Breathing is a hack to lower your blood pressure. But the point is, whatever you're going to do to lower your blood pressure, you're not going to sit there and think about this painful thought or painful memory. Because one thing at a time, you're not supposed to be doing that right now. You're supposed to focus on getting to sleep. So, okay, you're not going to do that. Now, this, of course, takes me back also to the worry workbook, where you get a blank book, put it next to your bed at a very primitive level. When you're having that thought, you just turn on the light. Do not turn on a computer screen. It's going to wake you up. Don't do it. And then you take out your workbook and you just write what you're worrying about. And then the rest of the worry workbook, that's in other episodes. I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, now what are you doing? Well, instead of having painful thinking, you're refocusing on, I'm working constructively to go to sleep. So one thing at a time. Now you're doing what you're supposed to do. Okay, so refocusing yourself, however you do it, on what am I supposed to be doing right now? Okay, that gets you out of that cycle of obsessive thinking and painful memories. Now, there's a bigger way to do that, which I mentioned earlier a few minutes ago, and that is if you are keeping some kind of list of things you need to get done, or, and I prefer this, things you can get done today. Okay, so you're always going to put down the things you have to get done, but you can also put down what are the fun things I could do, what are just interesting things I could do. So, my list every day has knit on the Lydia sock, knit on Stash Dive number 2 sock. Okay, so I put down a lot of things. What I'm actually doing is saying, when I do one of these things that's hard, I can do one of these things that's easier. I'm giving myself rest breaks, switching from more challenging to easier things. So that's how I get through my priority list. When you keep a list like this, one of the things you're doing is interrupting painful thinking or overthinking. How does that work, Gemma? I'm talking to myself in this episode. I'm not sure why. How does that work? Well, it works because at the end of the day, I look at the list and I see things that, in my case, I've drawn a line through. And I can say, wait a minute, I'm doing well. I had a full day today. No guilt. I did a good day today. I did a lot of things I was supposed to do. That's a sort of reality testing that breaks the overthinking cycle. So you lie in bed now and you say, I'm thinking about blah, blah, blah on my job. And you say, wait. I can't solve that now. I'm supposed to be going to sleep. And you look at your priorities list and you say, but I actually had a really good day. I can't lie here and punish myself. There's not going to be 25 hours in this day, no matter how hard I try. So I need to use the next 8 hours to sleep so that whatever my problems are, I'll handle them better tomorrow when I'm rested. The other adjunct to this is a schedule. Now, because of what I do for a living, I have one 5 days a week that I just turn on my Google account with my therapy group, and there's my schedule thanks to my wonderful front desk. And so I'm going to have at least 6 to 8 hours of my day scheduled for me, and that's nice. On the weekends, I'm looser with it. I just have a list of things I want to do, and I prioritize my list every morning, but I don't usually have a tight schedule on that. So on the weekends, I kind of loosen up. Why am I telling you this? A lot of people, when you say you need to schedule your time, they freak out. That doesn't work for me. It's too rigid. I can't do that every day. I feel like I'm just being controlled or I'm a slave or something. I agree. I do it 5 days a week, and the other 2 days, it's a lot more loose. And that way, I get free time, unscheduled time. Literally 2/7 of my time is beautifully unscheduled. Okay, it's about 29% of my time is unscheduled. That's pretty good. It's a little over 1/5 of my time. So scheduling helps with the priority list. Now, when you're writing your list of things you want to do or could do, you do put in the things that are on your schedule. So on weekdays on my schedule, it says The things I absolutely must do: see 6 patients, text tomorrow's patients to make sure they have the link for the meeting, and prepare my notes for tomorrow. That is on every weekday on my list. Why? Because it's really hollow if you have this schedule. So you say, I don't need to write that on my priorities list in any form. So you work through your schedule, and then you go to your priorities list, and you've been working hard all day on your schedule. You don't have time for any of your other stuff. You're going to feel really hollow. So make sure that the gist, at least, of your schedule appears on your priorities list. Now, the priorities list is also a way, I would call this the can-do list. Some of it you have to do, some of it you can do, but I call it my can-do list. But when you use this kind of list, it is a way to keep you on one thing at a time and to interrupt your overthinking. So if you have a problem with overthinking, you want to keep your mind busy all day on productive things or feel-good things. And this is the part where I put my face in my hand and I talk about all those idiotic memes on social media about rushing from one pointless goal to the next as though productivity is the only thing that counts. Let's look at that a minute, shall we? If this is what you need to do to keep your job and feed your kids, guess what? It does count. Thank you. But I also want to point out some of us are very goal-directed and goal-oriented. And I'm one of them. I work better when I feel like I'm achieving and making. I have nothing against people who practice any other craft than I practice. But you know why I knit and quilt and sew? Because at the end of it, I have this thing that I can use. There's only so many pictures I can hang on the wall. So even though I do like to draw, I don't do it very often because I ran out of walls. So please don't hear me dissing any of the other wonderful hobbies and crafts out there. I think any type of craftual expression, artistic expression, as long as it's not negative or hateful or whatever, I think any of that is good. But I am a person who thrives on feeling productive. If you're not that person, I'm sorry. And now a significant pause because my husband came into the room because he wanted to use the ensuite bathroom because my son was in the other one. This has a chain reaction of events. My husband comes in, Minerva gets jealous, she starts coming around me and yelling, and this of course brings my son in because he is hopelessly attracted to anything his father is doing. He's really his mini-me. And so I said, well, he's using the bathroom, which made my son say, oh, I'll make your bed, because we had done my sheets this morning, and my son likes to make beds. Oh my gosh, what a blessing. And then, of course, this means that Minerva has jumped into my lap, yelling and screaming and carrying on. So now as I sit here, I've got this recorder in one hand. Minerva is splayed across my lap, resting her head on the arm of my beautiful green rocking chair, and my notes somewhat awkwardly placed on the right armrest because her head is on the left. So, back at the strategy, the last thing I want to say about this is when I'm talking about priority lists and scheduling and all that, you actually have to have some place to put them, and that's kind of implied. For years, I have used blank books, which is fun. I enjoy picking out my blank books. I've got a backlog of blank books. But also now, as I think I've said a million times, I'm using the Hero's Journal, and I'm using the PDF form, which means you buy the PDF for each different journal. You buy their set of PDFs relating to it, $5 each, at least at Christmas time. I'm thinking that's probably normal, but they called it a sale. I don't care. For $5, what a steal. I bought the whole set, so $15, woo! But I am loving this, and plenty of room to write your priorities, plenty of room to establish your goals for the day, and you can just turn it on periodically through the day and tick off or line through the goals or the actions or whatever that you have done. So really what I'm saying is, when you talk about overthinking, the first step in this system of managing it is to recognize you're doing it, to focus on what you are supposed to be doing right now instead. And to be able to do that, you have to actually know what are the things you're supposed to be doing right now instead. And the easiest way to do that is making a can-do list with all the things you have to do and the things you'd like to do in between, and or a schedule, and then following that list. And when you get the bad thoughts, you say, wait. Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And you look at your list, find something else to do. If it's late at night, you say, I can't do that today. I've already done an enormous amount of meaningful stuff. So this is an overall time management system in disguise. You're probably noticing that. Okay. Having exhausted that one, oh shoot, I believe I'm at 220 miles right now. I have to tell you, that's kind of a shocker. Now, for those of you, like our darling Pachki, who is an amazingly dedicated, experienced biker. I know, 220 for Pachki is like 2/10 for me, because she's like massively great at this. But for the rest of us, 220, considering I was at dead zero in November, feels really good. In the background, what you're hearing is, notice that I am tracking the miles. I don't have to. There's an odometer on my bike desk. And again, this is all motivation. And this is all on my can-do list. Okay, so this is a small reward, telling you every week how many miles I've gotten, seeing it on the bike. The other thing that's amazing is when I would get on for 15 minutes, okay, bikers, try not to laugh, I would be lucky to get to 2 miles. Obviously, I'm doing better than that right now. I don't know, actually. I haven't tried to figure that one out. But at any rate, yeah, now, midway through the day's exercise, I see 2 miles go by. I haven't really noticed how much I do get done on a typical day. I'm supposed to be doing 25 minutes a day. I'm averaging about 33 minutes a day because I get on the bike, and thank you, Bike Desk. It's got a great post to mount my tablet on. So I just sit there and I do things like I'll put my tablet on there, my PDF tablet, my Remarkable, and I'll work my way through my can-do list for today and plan what tomorrow will look like while I'm sitting on the bike. Otherwise, I will put one of my Apple tablets on the bike and I will go through all my social media. I'll go through my email. I'll do financial planning. I'll check all the bills. It's great. I mean, the time just goes by without me noticing. Also, on those really nice days, I will turn on the tablet to my camera. Usually I do this on the Doxy Me platform, where I see about half my patients on Doxy. I will turn on Doxy when I have a patient, and I will just sit on the bike desk and talk to them on Doxy. And I will pedal very slowly, trying to keep my body from swaying side to side, because they figure out what you're doing, and they feel vaguely affronted. So I try not to do that, particularly if they tell me they don't like it, I certainly stop. The point is, it is really easy to sit on a bike and just do easy pedaling. And you can sit there and say, well, Gemma, for someone who was running marathons at one time, this is kind of light, isn't it? Okay, I will tell you what every runner says. Slow is better than couch. Okay, the fact is, it's like I'm walking for the same amount of time. It's slow and it's easy. It's also exercise every day. It's working really beautifully. So what's going on with my diet? I'm doing a lot of fasting, mainly because it feels great. I can't believe I'm saying that. And while I was talking above about the spiritual ramifications, I do want you to know that even the major medical journals are talking about the benefits of intermittent fasting. For those of us who are diabetic, this counts because that's where it came from, that people treating end-stage diabetes have discovered this, and it is remarkable in helping diabetics. So I am just going to say, you should talk to your doctor about it, and you want to talk to your doctor about it in the form of intermittent fasting and see what your doctor knows about it. But yeah, this is a medical thing as well now, that there is serious support in the medical community for taking brief fasts. Now, my version of it, I do the 18-6. I don't eat for 18 hours. I usually don't eat from about 6 o'clock at night to about noon the next day. Realistically, it's more, in my case, it's more 7 p.m. to 1 p.m. So you're just letting your whole system rest and finish digesting the previous day's food. And then I do eat, in those 6 hours, I eat as much as I want to eat. These days, that's not much because I mentioned my stomach shrank and I've lost 7 pounds. Oh, that feels so good to say. Oh, yes. And now when I look in the mirror, I'm having trouble with pajama pants falling off. My other clothes have loosened significantly, so it may not be a lot of weight, but it's making me real happy. It makes a big difference. And I feel so much better. I have so much more energy. My sleep is better and all that good stuff. So that's all shoot. In the fluffy book, someday I'll finish that docudrama on Alexander the Great. I am nearing the end of the Scandalous Confessions of Lydia Bennet, which, if you are at all a fan of Jane Austen's works or Pride and Prejudice, I really recommend this. It is smart, it is very original, it's slyly funny, and it's the best I'm going to redeem Lydia Bennet story, because everybody tries, I swear, that I have seen so far. It really takes a very peculiar angle, like she's a witch, on why she is the way she is and why she does the things she does. And it also gives you a hope of salvation. The protagonist learns some important things in a very believable way, although certainly sort of otherworldly. It's just a fun book. Something I really like, well, as Minerva is stretched across my lap, coincidentally, I put in pictures of her in the feline yoga pose called Udon Cat, which is she is a big noodle flopped across my lap and just enjoying herself in the warmth. I really like this. I have to say, when I want her to do this, I wear one of my flannel skirts. She tolerates my cotton skirts. She doesn't really like them. She hates it when I'm just wearing leggings. She wants the sling effect that a skirt across my knees gives. At the same time, she wants the warmth of the flannel. I keep flannel sheets on my bed by preference. I even made it through last summer with flannel sheets, which was a first for me, because I just like them, and I tend to get cold at night, So if she's not on my flannel skirted lap, my wonderful cat will be on my flannel sheeted bed. So she is here right now demonstrating the Udon cat pose, and you can see pictures of it in the show notes. Put a lid on it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I got rid of all the artificial sweeteners, including the keto-friendly ones like allulose, swerve, everything but stevia. I'm using stevia in the electrolytes, about 5 drops of liquid stevia per pint. I don't feel bad because stevia is just a plant, but it's a plant that's intensely more sweet than sugar. I have to tell you, I'm not really noticing any change, except I'm saving a lot of money. I didn't realize how much I was spending on things like Diet Cokes as a treat when I go out to dinner, or Swerve in things. And I do want to bake with Swerve. I imagine I will do it again. A friend suggested, bake it and then just break it into squares and freeze it and thaw one out every time you need a hit of that. And it's really creepy because I don't need a hit. I think years ago, when I became keto, I was told I'd get over the cravings for sweetness, and I didn't. That was the one flaw. It happened. It happened this time around with the fasting. And again, I don't want y'all to go on keto diets, particularly because that transition period's hard. A lot of people say, I can't do it, or it doesn't work for me. I believe it works for everybody, but I have to tell you that transition is hard. They said, 2 weeks. No, try 6 months. Keto flu lasts 2 weeks. No, it didn't. It lasted about 3 months, I think, for me. But even so, that first 6 months was this intense battle with my cravings for carbs and sugar. And you can hear I never quite got past that. Well, now here, I've just passed the 6-year mark on my being keto. Now I'm kind of revisiting it, and it's suddenly happening. So, I'm not here advocating all y'all got to be keto. I'm here talking about Dr. Gemma's struggle with diabetes, and that leads to, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. What are the strategies around that? They may help you with any kind of food management program or diet you have. Doesn't mean you have to have the one that I have. Now that I've said that, it is really scary. You really can lose a taste for sweetener. I last had a Diet Coke. Now it would be 8 days ago. I couldn't drink it. I sort of gagged it out. I forced it down afterwards, walked away and said, I will never do that again. And this brings up another issue. I have these weird ideas about food, like food is a reward, food is a treat. So yesterday I'm down in Santa Clarita shopping, and I said, and I'll stop at Starbucks as a treat. And then I thought, why is that a treat exactly? And what I did was I went and ordered a sugar-free, sweetener-free iced tea. Didn't put cream in it. For some reason, I'm just not craving cream right now, so I just stopped using that. I didn't put cream in it, and it was perfect. It was really good. It really hit the spot. But, I went to Joann's and I bought 2 skeins of yarn because of the crochet projects I'm talking about. Cheap yarn. It was on sale. I didn't tell you, and I will. That makes the stash toss 13 in versus 33 out. I got to finish some projects, kids. Okay. So all I can say is all of this is about you don't need sweeteners, but let's be honest about this. It takes reconditioning of your taste buds. That's not something that happened for me overnight. I had to use the artificials. The chemical ones, like aspartame and all that, those are hard on your liver. There is evidence that the allulose ones may be hard. This has not been validated yet, research-wise. But there is a study that says those may be related to stress on the cardiac system. I'm waiting to see what happens there. Stevia is just fine. It's never been shown to hurt anybody. But it is very interesting. The other thing that's happened, food is way more flavorful. I mean way more flavorful. I'm drinking all my wonderful Plum Deluxe teas. Caffeine now sends me into space. I can have 1 cup in the morning, but it has to be 4 hours before I see patients or I'm too hyperactive. It makes my heart thunder. I haven't had this response in years, as far as I know. And I'm drinking Plum Deluxe tea, and it tastes absolutely the same as it did with Swerve in it, which is weirding me out. And it's delicious. I feel like I taste all the elements, but we're definitely going to the herbal tea. For that, I'm grateful for that Christmas Advent calendar sampler box in herbal. That's another favorite did me. So no new tea tastings right now. They're running some nice specials on spring flavors. They've got an herbal box that's about going to sleep at night. We'll see. I'm debating. The blather, oh my Lord, my kid turned 18 this week. Now you know why I was busy. So we have some lovely pictures of the party of my boys celebrating. And we did do the silly string battle yesterday. And that's where I learned that my 18-year-old has been planning his revenge for months. That the last time we did one of these parties, he just ran around the back of the house and disappeared so nobody could hit him. He let us fight it out. Then he came back when he figured we were out of string. Fortunately, I saw through that one. And while my husband heroically shot me with silly string, this was my birthday last September, I held on to my canister and I nailed my kid when he came around the building. So this time, he figured out he's faster than the old folks. And so oh my gosh, it was so funny and so clever. We're shooting each other, and he just keeps dancing out of range, then dancing back, shooting us in the face. He got me right across the nose, and then dancing away. So, of course, I countered with, let's corner him, where there's a corner formed by the garage wall and the fence. And, so we cornered him there and shot the heck out of him, but he managed to dance around it and get on the other side of us, on the open driveway edge. It's a dirt road. He's not going to get hit by a car, guys. Oh my gosh. So this is where I learned that my 18-year-old has spent months planning this strategy. You can see him there enjoying his first iPhone. That was his birthday present. We're still trying to sort out how to get his own line and separate it from mine. We're having some problems with the SIM card and all that. We're working on it, but he's got his phone and he's pretty happy. Meanwhile, this was the 21st anniversary of my first LA Marathon, my only LA Marathon. You can see a picture of me there holding the medal. They've since changed the design. Frankly, I like the old one better. But the interesting thing was my son was born the day they ran the 2006 LA Marathon. And a woman won it. That is, she was faster than the man who won it in the men's division. I took that as a sign from above and really enjoyed the childbirth experience, if you can, when you're having a C-section and you're liver has failed utterly in the midst of it. It was actually a great experience. I wouldn't have known there was a problem if they hadn't kept telling me there was a problem. It was one of the great experiences of my life, being awake for that C-section. Anyway, so there we go. Happy anniversary to the LA Marathon. Those of you who have run the LA Marathon, my warm felicitations as your marathon sister. And to any new people who ran it this year, congratulations and welcome to the siblinghood. I've already talked about weight loss and fasting. The digital cleaning, wow, is that making a difference? I got to recommend this. 15 minutes a day. I have now gotten rid of all the digital copying. Everything is backed up on 2 4-terabyte drives. I'm now working my way through my filing cabinet, getting rid of all the old files. I still have a handful from my private practice. I don't think I do anymore. I think I shredded them all. I'm working on old files that have been hanging around for years. And again, I just go through all the papers. I put a few on the side to digitize, and the rest, if they're confidential, into the shredder, like all our old taxes that are way beyond the statute of limitations. And then it's all going into the trash. It's weird. It made me realize that there's no reason to have paper files around. I've got all these old 3-ring binders I need to give away. I don't know if anybody even wants them. So that's been going great. Project G, that's back on the rails. I got rid of, let me think, I think 8 boxes of stuff out of our garage. That includes shredding up old cardboard and recycling it. I'm looking again at the closed closets, thinking, is there more to go to givebackbox.com? I am now finished, by the way, making those 2.5-inch strips from leftover fabrics from my skirts. I have an enormous storage bin full of them. I am stunned. So I am now thinking about making just scrap squares out of them and putting those to the side. And when I get enough, blanket, quilt. I have a bunch of fat quarters that I bought. I am keeping them and 1 or 2 big blocks of fabric from my old fabrics on hold because I'm thinking they may go into slightly larger size scrap projects. Meanwhile, there are no other changes in the household projects. The dogs are just fine. Minerva's in my lap. There is a list in the show notes, of course, of what I call the community resources. These will all take you to threads on the Ravelry group for cognitive. One is a crochet and knitting patterns library. These are the books I recommend. That's really it. If you want to know the patterns I recommend individually, you go to my Ravelry account, Gemma DW on Ravelry, and you also go to the links in the show notes for the projects I'm working on, and you can see the individual patterns I like. That library is more about whole books. There's also a link to my favorite resources that I purchase to support my knitting, completed by Gemma, type tags, that sort of thing. And there's also a link to the skills and techniques that I have found useful. Meanwhile, on the calendar, Yarnopoly and Second Saturday Stitchers, you find them on Facebook. They have their meetups on the second Saturday of each month. Yarnopoly is now going to 2 Saturdays, 2nd and 4th. That means that they will have overlap with the Sit and Stitch group at the Joanne Darcy Library in Kenyon Country. That is 9 to noon on the 2nd and 4th Saturday of the month. Again, you can just Google that, and they have, I believe that'll take you to a website, to the Santa Clarita Valley Library website. And then there is the SCV Free Craft Exchange. Got rained out today, but usually they're once a month. That's an amazing thing. If you don't have this in your region, I suggest you start one. We meet in a parking lot, we open our trunks, we show each other all the goodies that we have, and you just give them away for free. No, you don't have to trade, you don't have to purchase. It's lovely. CFR 10, Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10, will be at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia on September 28th, 2024. It is usually 9 to 5. That is the deal we have with the hotel. They were extremely generous with us because they can't rent this function room out on a Saturday because this is in an industrial park. It is not what you'd call a popular photo spot for weddings. You know what I mean? And they liked us and we liked them last year. That went extremely well. So again, I already mentioned this, but there is, again, a link at the bottom of the show notes too. Finally, Romule, that is that time that Scandinavians call Romule between Christmas and New Year's. For me, it's looking like it will be December 21st through I think the 29th, and then because the holidays are on a Wednesday, then it will probably work that Monday and Tuesday, and then have the first off. Finally, Minerva gets the last word. You can see her lying on my cutting mat, watching me cut down. Actually, those are an old pair of pajama pants, but they're in flannel, and so I'm cutting them down to add to my 2.5-inch strips box, which you can see the corner of the box right to the left of the picture. But there's Minerva trying to help. After months of doing this, literally, she came over and tried to sniff the blade as I was cutting. That is very fear-inducing. But, you have to realize she is a helpful kitty, and you should be one too. Meanwhile, please remember, we are a community. And when we help the community, we do preserve our individual rights, because being a part of a community serves all our best interests and protects us all. So, in that spirit, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.